Hey everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's been a while since we've done this, so I'm excited to have you all here again. This is the ACP 420 JSM certification prep number 2. We've delayed this one for quite a while. We were supposed to do this yesterday actually, but there were some tech issues. I am hoping there are no tech issues today while we are doing the stream, but I'm glad any of you who could join me today. And we would, of course, record this session. This is on YouTube, so make sure that you're here and you're learning and you've got your Jira instance ready. So if you've got a free instance, you set that up. If you got a temp playground instance that you have that ready. And yeah, we'll get started in a minute. It'll be a shorter session. It'll be a shorter session, as in we'll cover, I think, somewhere around 30-35 minutes of talking about JSM, talking about some of the aspects of managing the JSM project, and we'll see how it goes. I know we've, again, as I said, we've delayed this much quite a bit. So we'll directly jump into the session and we'll start with the screen sharing and we'll talk about what the agenda for today is. So let me just switch to the screen sharing mode. And in true fashion, I'm using Confluence. I'm using the presentation mode in Confluence. We'll look at the content of the course using the Confluence presentation mode itself. All right, I hope you guys can hear me clearly because I'm using a different mic setup this time. But yeah, let's get started. So this is the, as I said, ACP prep session number 2. Today's focus is we are going to learn a little bit about the high value topic specifically. So we'll do a focus review of what a project admin uh, of JSM does, but not a full Jira admin, because when we talk about full Jira admin, of course, there are many more things that we would want to talk about. So we'll talk a little bit about the portal structure. We'll talk a little bit about the portal is structured, request types, issue types, workflows, forms. We'll see how those agents actually work when it comes to queues and SLAs. We'll talk a little bit about emails, notification, behavior for customer and agents. If you have any questions, please make sure that you are writing that in the chat. Thank you, Liz. Great to see you here. Uh, all right, yeah. Anytime I see Liz, I start thinking about the early days of Quizbiz and how Liz was always a recurring face. And I got to meet her at Alex's house last year. I'm hoping that I'll get to meet you again, Liz, this time, and a bunch of other folks from the community team. So fingers crossed. Let's see how that turns out. All right, coming back. This is a JSM study session. So we'll talk a little bit more about queues, SLAs, customers versus agents, everything in there. But we'll have, as you can see a little bit from my slide, we have some generic questions embedded in there, for you guys to, tell me what you're feeling or what you have thought about some of these aspects as well. All right, so as I said, these are the some of the session overview, some of the items that we'll talk about. I also have a JSM site handy available right behind this, so we'll talk more about that as well. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the JSM project admin role itself. So let me give you some background why this is important, right? So for people who are fairly new to JSM, I had a friend back in the day. This is back in the day, and he was a good Jira admin. As in, he knew how to, and when I say a good Jira admin, I say he could do the basic stuff and a little bit of the advanced stuff, which is most of the people that I knew, right? So they could, they could modify workflows, they could write groovy a little bit, they could convince a customer not to create a custom field, which I think is one of the superpowers that a Jira admin needs to have. And they could do all of those things, but then their organization adopted JSM and he struggled because a Jira admin thinking might be on a different neighborhood than what you need to be when you're thinking about being a dedicated JSM admin, because you need to think much more in terms of customers and agents, because in Jira you are the end yeah, solution provider for your team members who are working, with Jira and like creating issues and managing reports and everybody. But when an external picture person comes into the picture, when there's a customer involved, things sometimes change, right? So that's why it's important to understand what are the project aspects, what are the project demands from a JSM admin as well. All right. That being said, let's talk a little bit more about what are the types of portals, what are the request types, issue types, workflows, and forms. All right. Let me see if I can minimize this, and we can go into the portal itself. So this, as you can see, is a one Atlassian instance that I have, and we are here in a service desk project or a service management project. What you're seeing here are couple of issues that have been created, which have been assigned, but we'll start with the channels first. So the first entrant where you talk about, hey, how do you create an issue or how do your customer create an issue, are via two or three modes. One of the most common ones is by using a JSM portal. When we say JSM portal, it's the place where your customers will come, whether internal or external, and create requests or create issues or work items for you in the backend. Uh, and this is the place, and how you set it up would be the place to define how your job is easy or tough. Because if you've got your request types itself a little confused, a little tougher to manage, it would become difficult for your customer, and in turn would hamper your own uh, ability to resolve those issues. So as you can see, you can define what those categories look like. You can have you by the way, as an admin, of course, you can customize anything and everything that you need. You can create content under which bucket they should fall under. So as you can see, in general category, I now have three of these uh, issue types or request types when we are talking about JSM. You can have that, where you can have your contract and negotiations. These are the other items inside it. In global channel program, these are some of the other items that I have as well. So it's important how you set up those uh, JSM service desk or your customer portal. And why this is also important is because the ACP exam itself will also quiz you or question you about how you can make things easy or what are the challenges that your customer might have. So, like for example, you're seeing two request types here right now, but one of your customers only sees one. Why? And to understand that question at a point where you're able to help that customer, you need to know how you can actually set it up and what are the ways in which uh, it may malfunction, for so that one of the customers is not able to see that one request type that you have in your system. All right, coming back, let's go back. Let's go back to the portal itself, and then let's see what are the other options. Other channels include, of course, email. So this email you can configure in the backend when your customers send out an email. Not my favorite way to create a customer ticket, because the amount of overhead that it sometimes creates can be a cause for concern. But if it's not a very active service desk with uh, you know a bunch of team members working in shifts, wouldn't be the best thing that I would recommend. But for some priority customers, I have myself created those email accounts and given those emails to you, to the customers, so that it's easier. It's easier for them. Sometimes it gets a little tougher for the team to manage it, because then there has to be a person who goes in and updates those tickets in the back end, and then they need to be reflected to the customer itself, all of those. And it takes a little while to get the proper information for the JSM admin themselves. But at times that becomes an issue. All right, but it is well an option for a customer, where you can create that as a channel. You can also create widget or turn on chat. So these two options, as you can see here, I've turned it off for now. We'll talk more about the portal in the exam. Also, you'll see more on the portal and the email itself. So let's say for example we are talking a little bit more about the exam itself, right? So let's say let me go to the exam guide itself and open the exam topic. When we talk about customer portal, look what are some of the items that we need to check when it comes to specifically talking about the portal. So these are the request types, and it's a big section. Customer facing features, which portal is the biggest piece of it. It's 21% of the exam. How you are configuring your request types, how you are configuring your forms, managing those email requests that we just talked about, how you can create custom email accounts. Like, for example, in my previous company, we set up support at the rate xyz.com, and they didn't need to know anything else. All they needed to know was there was support at the rate xyz.com. They would send an email to that email box and it will come to the portal. Uh, yeah. Uh, One more thing that I would want to mention here is how you manage the JSM portal also defines how your agents resolve it. So let's separate the agent from the admin, right? So the agent is the person who will work on the issue itself. So you might be a JSM admin, but the ticket might be, let's say, a HR issue or a finance issue. It's not in your purview to solve it, but it's your responsibility to enable the agent that they are able to communicate with the end user as a JSM admin and get whatever information they need and give them whatever information they have. At any point, folks, once again, if you have any questions, please write that in the chat. Make sure that you're putting that information in there. All right, coming back. So yes, we talk a little bit about email requests. This is what we are going to do now that we've got this series once and up and running again. The plan is to have this section talk broken down into separate aspects, and we'll talk about one section each week. So let's say, for example, let's talk a little bit more about these customer facing features itself. One of the most underutilized features is what we just saw earlier, how you lay out your uh, request types for your customers to have the ease of access of reaching them. uh, like a good friend of mine didn't sort the customer portal in a way where his end customer had to search every time in the search bar to find which uh, request type that they had to. It helped because he had Confluence integration in there, and he could point them to the documentation for a self-serve kind of a model, but still struggled because it did create a situation where the portal itself could be a little bit easier, and if that's not there, then it becomes much more tougher, right? So it's very important for you to make sure that you do that, and in turn it's important for the exam types as well. It's also very crucial how you understand which fields are shown and which fields are hidden. So in Jira, you can, let's say, for example, let me open the contract and negotiations view. Now, if you're a Jira admin, you know this is a terrible field name, but it doesn't have to be a field name. That's the beauty of JSM. JSM fields can be, uh, you know, another name for another field. So, like for example, name of the other party, the field could be third party, and what you're writing on the JSM portal as a field to explain that field information to your end customer is this text. So there's this label or text that you can put on top of a normal Jira field, so that you can capture that information. It stays in that Jira field itself, but it doesn't have to. And then of course there are forms. So when we talk about forms, it's a beautiful concept. It has helped a lot of JSM admins get information faster from their end customers, and definitely something that we'll talk about more. All right, coming back. So adding, removing fields. When we talk about adding and removing fields, I would recommend doing this yourself. So like for example, create a form and try to see what are some of the ways in which you can manage that. So, like for example, what I mean by that is, let's say you are raising a request, right? So when you are raising, let's say, global channel program, this specific field, the fields that you're seeing, which one is mandatory, which one is not, those define also again something that makes your Jira admin, or makes your Jira agent, JSM agent uh, a little more thankful to you, because again, if you are able to configure the fields and work with your agents to make sure what information they need to resolve the customer complaint, they would be able to, you know, resolve that request faster. And then same goes to same goes to the aspect of helping the JSM admin resolve their duties. So setting the name and description correctly, adding or removing fields, you can do that, of course, going into the project admin. You can, you know, add more information here. You can go into the settings of this project. You can start looking at what are some of the aspects that are now available. Let's go to settings. As you can see, I can go into portal, I can go into email. So this is my portal URL. I can copy paste, give this information to somebody else. You can change this logo also, which is, I think, a very cool, neat trick that you can do. uh, with the changes that are coming in Rovo, uh, another feature that is now coming in, that a new Rovo agent you can select. So if you have a bunch of agents on this side, so this is my playground side, there aren't many on this one Atlassian instance. But if you already have some Rovo agents built for service, you can create them from a template, or you can manage those agents in Studio. Uh, if you don't know much about Robo and Studio and chat and search, I would recommend join Robo Games. So it's another series that my good friend Rob Heen and I do. It's scheduled for April 20th, I believe, 20th or 21st. We do one each month, and we got get a very smart person from the ecosystem, much smarter than both of us, at least much smarter than me. And we get that person, we talk more about Robo in a gamified manner. So there are questions that we ask from our guest. We give them the ability to quiz using Mentimeter. So you as audience, you get to play and quiz and, you know, ask questions and reach out and those kind of things as well. So not touching Robo in this session, but if you are interested in Robo, search for Robo Games. If you've joined us from community-led classes, you'll find one post or portal for, I think, the April session. March, I think we just did one last week with Rebecca, and you can check out the video on this channel itself. Yeah, so we'll not touch there, but it's again something that is, I believe, going to be very helpful for agents. As of now, there aren't that many questions, so you'll see it's skirting around that idea, how Robo is impacting normal life of a JSM admin. So it will be there. So I am assuming in like the next iteration, whenever the certification team revamps the course content, you'll see a lot more Robo questions in there. But as of now, there aren't that much. All right. Announcements, again, something that is very important. So anytime, let's say you have an outage, anytime you have an issue with your product that you know about, and you don't want your customers coming to your portal and just creating, hey, I have a VPN issue. You can just write that as a banner on top, an announcement banner on top, which using which your customer gets to know, oh, there is already a, you know, an outage. We don't need to create further tickets just for that. So yeah, that's definitely something that you can do. All right, cool. Moving on. So what you need to also make sure is this setting is enabled, because if you select the other one, if you're a mature project, more than welcome, have agents and can add announcements in the portal as well. But in the beginning, when you're starting your journey, I would recommend set it to only project admins should add announcements to this portal. Then there's also the help center portal, that announcement that you can add later on. Agents cannot add announcement for the entire site. It has to be the Jira admin who has to change that setting. But once they do that, you know, you'll be able to do that. All right, coming back, portal groups. This is what we were talking about earlier. This is where you saw those items. So let's say this specific request for a partner agreement review, the one that we were looking for, it's under global channel program. I can see this here. I can edit this request type right here. And once I open it, I get a three view panel. So I get the request form itself, the information that I see when I open this field as a end customer. There is the work item view that my agent will see, or once the ticket is submitted, that they will be able to see the request that is submitted. It will include all the fields that the person has added and more. So like there might be times where that agent might need to, let's say for example, work with somebody else internally, and they might need some context fields depending on that portal. So for that, it might be something that they would want to add, so you can add that here itself. So again, you can add or delete items from here. You have all these fields that you're seeing on the right hand side for you to move things around. If you've got workflow statuses, that is something that you may want to rename. Like for example, in review by legal is not something, let's say for example, you want to show your end customer, you can rename that to just say in review. That's it. Yeah, make it simple for the end customer. If you want to share more, you can, of course, and this is where you can see them. So let me first save it. Let me create a ticket, test ticket, uh, partner review for home games. Copy paste. I'm just sending this ticket. Once the ticket is created, I'm going to open it. This is where you can see. So you see the status as to do. That's the end customer status. Now, as an agent, when I open this ticket and I say, all right, it's in review by legal, my customer can also see that change, but it's only going to see in review because that's what we have told the system to show, right? Whatever you change is what your end customer sees. Just added this extra line for you to note that it's that efficient. The moment you update it, it gets updated, and then you're able to see it. All right. Coming back, let's come back to the portal. So these are the three things that you can create, add, edit. You can also manage some of the restrictions of who can raise request and who can view the work items in here itself if you've got the correct permissions to manage it. But that is also something that ties into your ability as a good Jira admin. Managing workflows, it's always a double-edged sword. So I always recommend people to create a copy of the workflow that they are editing before they are about to make the changes, because then it makes it a little less worrisome for you to play around. Or you have a sandbox, nothing better than a sandbox. Play around in your sandbox, and then now there are many amazing companies in the marketplace which will let you move your configurations from your sandbox to your cloud. You can do that there as well. Yes, all right. Let's move on. Let's move on and talk a little bit more about the portal itself. So let's go back to the request types. When you are on your request types, let me open the I was in the portal. So yeah, we've talked about the portal groups. We've talked about the logos. We've talked about uh, which items you'll see under where. So, like for example, one interesting thing here is, let's say for example, request a legal review is in general. You can open this and add that email request. Let's say for example, you added to contract and negotiation, and you added an email request here as well. It doesn't mean it will create a duplicate, just means you can access this email request type from multiple buckets, because it can have more than one association. Liz makes a perfect point in the chat. She says zero trust and RBAC design should be done for each user type. That's a great long term as somebody who has struggled with that and seen the bad side of what happens when you don't have that policy. Liz, I totally feel for you. If you're mentioning that, you've definitely been burned more than once on that. But that's a brilliant advice. Yes. All right, portal group. Let's go back. Let's talk a little bit more about the email section that we were talking about earlier. So this, as you can see, you can have your email section set here. You can create another Atlassian email. You can create an external email in here as well, and that will help you basically give a little more human touch, a little more easier. Like, for example, as I told you earlier, support at the rate xyz.com. Yeah, so something like that definitely helps your customers to manage what they are responding to, or where they need to go when they need to look for support. All right, so we've talked a little bit about request types, portals. Let's look what's next. uh, Setting default values is also something that I would encourage you to check out. How you do that is basically by telling the system that if there is a field, you can by default make it easy. Let's say, for example, requesting a new hardware, the most amount of tickets that you get is for a new machine. So you can by default select it, and of course the customer can change it. You can by default set it to, let's say, the default answer is a MacBook, right? But they can change it from the drop down. Just again, small tiny things that you can do to make your customers life easy, and in turn make your own life easy. uh, you can change some of the field layouts. You can change the customer workflow status, which we just saw earlier, and restricting specific request type to a subset of individuals. So this is the other thing that we were checking before we moved on to something else, right? So when we were in this specific information, let's say, for example, email request. Let's take email request as an example. When we were here, remember this restriction section that you get? Yeah, so this is where you can define who can see what. So you can add a work item security or an issue type security if you're still old school. Uh, this basically helps you to define which specific group. So let's say, for example, in my specific customer organization, I only want some people to update their emailed or use the email this request issue type. Until you define that, there would not be space for that specific request type to come into the system and get resolved. So you can, it's like issue type security. If you're a Jira admin, or if you've used as a Jira admin, again, putting a limit, like for example, raising a new budget update request should be restricted to the finance manager. It's as simple as that. So in that manner, you can set that up. All right. Going back. Just to quick check on time, we are like under 2 minutes, so we'll wind this up in the next couple of minutes. So we specifically looked at the customer-facing features, and specifically around the portal and the request types. In the next coming days, we are going to basically go into each and every section. Once again, I apologize. We've delayed this quite a while. We wanted to do this like I think 3 4 weeks back, but then it was rescheduled and rescheduled. But I'm glad we're doing this now, and I hope some of you are planning to give that ACP exam with me. I'm going to put a bunch of ACP study sessions on this channel itself, on the community led classes, and they will be driven by the QuizBiz channel that you see. As Rob, my good friend, says that in the chat, yes, this shirt is the QuizBiz community shirt. This channel does a bunch of learning, trivia, and Atlassian focus content. If you like, please subscribe to the channel. You'll see a lot more content coming in terms of study sessions, specifically coming your way in the next couple of weeks. With that, I take a pause. Thank you so much for joining me for 30 minutes, talking more about what the ACP-420 does. There are two more folks who have already done this series. Of course, Rob is one. His entire series is on YouTube. He also has an amazing course that I myself reviewed when I was preparing for the course, and you can check that out. You can go to heen.tech and actually attend the course there itself. Or I believe Alex and Rodney, the Jira Life, also did a series of study sessions for ACP-420. I will move a little earlier in the day because I'm from India, so I'm going to make sure if I can do this a little earlier in the day, some around 4 p.m. IST, 5 p.m. IST. So more of my APAC friends, maybe even Australia, can join in because I know Rob and even Jira Live does a little earlier US morning times. But yeah, that's going to be the plan. With that, I'm right on time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you on the next study session. Thank you and have a very good day.